Hello everyone, welcome to the additional video on Snowpro core certification series. This video is an additional content video which is recorded as on March of 2025. So far in our YouTube channel, we had created a series of videos for Snowpro core certification. Many people are asking me whether the contents which are currently available can be used for the newer version of the exams, meaning Snowflake keep on adding some new contents to the exam study guide, whether the series of videos are tamper proof so that we can study and pass the exam. All the videos are tamper proof. This video is going to hold the contents which is introduced by the Snowflake over the period of past 6 to 9 months. Why? Because I recorded the video on tentatively on May and June of 2024. Now we are on March of 2025. In this duration, there are some new additions which happened over the exam study guide. We are going to discuss about those things, and then we are going to discuss about what are all the new changes which is added in the study guide. All these details are going to be covered as the part of this video. Now if you can see, this is the new exam study guide from the Snowflake. This is not the new exam study guide. It is more or less the same, almost 90 to 95% same. This is the older one which I referred while I'm preparing the contents for the exam. Here you can see most of the contents, whatever the headings, all these things are more or less same, but the percentages are slightly varying. Here you can see 24, 18, 16, but here it is 25, 20, 15, something like that. But that's not important for us. The important thing is whatever the contents which are mentioned within that each and every domain. In that, if you can see on domain 1, there is a mention of Streamlit in Snowflake, Cortex ML services, Snowflake SQL API. These are all the contents which are added as new there. That is something which is very important to know. And then if I see domain number 2, there is no change which is happened there. And on domain number 3, the 3.5 section, the entire section on the cost monitoring, cost optimization concepts and best practices on Snowflake got introduced. This is an important thing. This video is going to cover most of these chunks as well. Right. Apart from that, if I can go through domain 4, there is nothing of changes there. Domain 5, there is no changes there. Domain 6 as well, there is no changes there. So almost 95% there are no changes compared to the older study guide. But there is one new section of 3.5 and also some new contents on Cortex ML got introduced. That is very important for us to go through those specific contents so that we are completely equipped to pass this exam. First of all, we are going to discuss about Snowflake Cortex and Snowflake ML. What is Snowflake Cortex? If you are already practicing generative AI on Snowflake or machine learning and large language model related activities within Snowflake, then Cortex is not a new thing for you. Cortex is the suite of AI services that uses the large language models to understand unstructured data, answer free-form questions, and provide intelligent assistance. Now let us try to understand it using this diagram. At the bottom, you can see Snowflake, AI21 Labs, Anthropic, DeepSeek, NVIDIA, Meta, Mistral AI, Voyage AI. These are all the large language models. If you see Snowflake's LLM is Arctic, Anthropic Claude is there, DeepSeek is one of the newest LLM models which is very prevalent, NVIDIA models are there, Meta's Llama is there. Similarly, all the base large language models are provided to us by the Cortex AI. On top of that, if you see, the chat related functionalities are provided using Cortex Analyst, Cortex Search and Cortex Agents, and then on top of that we are having the Cortex Studio and AI Observability. Then finally on top of everything we are going to have the Snowflake Copilot and Document AI. We are going to look at it in a greater detail. So this is the complete suite of AI, ML, LLM, generative AI based services wherein which you can pick and choose your large language models. First of all, what is the important thing it is going to offer is the large language model functions, which we call it as LLM functions. These are all the functions which we can call within the SQL. Say I am writing the Snowflake SQL. Within that SQL, I can call this function. So this function will call the similar LLM model and it will generate the response and it will bring it back to us. So what are all the functions which are available? First sort of the functions are complete functions. Complete functions are wide range of user specified tasks such such as the aspect based sentiment classification, synthetic data generation, customized summaries generation. So these sorts of tasks can be completed using complete function. Next type is the task specific function, where you can use classify text, parse document kind of task specific functions. These are all self explanatory. If you see classify text, when you give the text it will automatically classify it. When you give the document it will automatically parse the document and generate the vectors for those documents. All these things can be done using task specific functions. Finally, the helper functions, which consist of something like count tokens and try complete. These are all helpful to understand the number of tokens which you are passing as the part of the LLM. So these are all for one main level of things which we call it as the LLM functions within the Cortex. And then the other option is the Snowflake Copilot, which we already discussed here. Copilot is not a new thing. Copilot, GitHub Copilot, you might be aware of. This is a pair programming, meaning you can just give your interesting things in the form of the English and automatically it will generate the output. Say if you are trying to build a store procedure and you got struck, then you can give it to Copilot that I want to create a store procedure which can take two inputs as the integers, and then it needs to sum those two integers and give me the output. Like that way you can write it in English, automatically it will generate the Snowflake SQL for you, so you can utilize it. It's an LLM powered pair programming assistant which will be very helpful while doing the coding. And then the other option is the document AI. Document AI is to extract the data from the documents. Say like if you are having a PDF document, you want to extract the data from the PDF document. All PDF, say like a video file or an audio file or an Word document or an PPT presentation, everything is classified as the unstructured document, meaning there is no structure to the data. So if you want to generate the data out of those documents, then you can simply use the document AI feature, which is again a no code low code based solution where you can just push your document and get the data out of it. And then comes the Cortex fine tuning. So to understand the generative AI predominantly happening in the industry on three major lines. First, bottom line for generative AI is all about prompt engineering, where you can try different types of prompts, say like one shot prompting, few shot prompting, chain of thought prompting. You can utilize those prompting techniques to generate the output in an efficient way. Even if prompt engineering is not working for you, then you can try something called as an retrieval augmented generation, which we call it as an RAG pattern, where you can give your data, generate the embeddings for your data and store it in the vector database, and then you can utilize the frameworks such as LangChain, LangGraph to interact with that vector database and pull back the data for your required needs. That is the second type. Third option is the fine tuning, where the RAG is also not yielding you the better results. Then what you can do, you can utilize the fine tuning. You can have your own corpus of data, use that data and fine tune the existing Arctic model. Say in this case, if you are using the Snowflake's Arctic model here, you can take that Arctic model, use your data, domain specific data or whatever data which you are having, and then utilizing the Cortex framework, you can fine tune that specific LLM model. That is happening in this Cortex fine tuning. It leverages the parameter efficient fine tuning to create the customized adapters for use with the pre-trained models and more specialized tasks. And then comes the Cortex search. Search is similar search, Google search or kind of search. Nowadays even in Google they are generating the Gemini responses there. So it is a simple low latency high quality fuzzy matching over the data which is stored in the Snowflake. And finally we will be having a Cortex analyst which will help you to create applications which are capable of reliably answering question and answers based on your structured data in Snowflake. Say if you want to build an app which takes the Snowflake data as your base data and it is going to answer the questions and for your specific needs, then you can very well utilize the Cortex analyst. So the complete suite of services which are provided to us by Cortex, which is mainly for large language models and generative AI. What if I want to create a model from the basics? Say like I am having my own data, I don't want to rely upon any of these things, I want to create my own model. Then Snowflake is providing us with the option called Snowflake ML, where you can have the option to build your own models. So this complete set of things are for the data science related aspects within the Snowflake. Please be aware of all these things. As usual, I will be adding the relevant Snowflake documentation links in the description of this video. Please go through those things as well for the better understanding. Next stop, we are going to discuss about the SQL API. What are all the SQL API functions which are available within Snowflake? This is not something new, but as it is mentioned in the study guide, it is my responsibility to cover this as the part of the course. So SQL API, what is the SQL API? SQL API is an REST API that will allow you to access and update the data in the Snowflake database. It's a simple thing. Say you are having your data which is lying in Snowflake, you want to read the data, you want to write some data into Snowflake, you can utilize the Snowflake SQL API. So you can use this API option to develop and custom applications and integrations that can perform queries, manage your deployment like provision of users and roles and creation of tables, etc. It's a very simple thing. If you are aware of the API, it's a simple API from Snowflake. The Snowflake SQL API provides the operations that you can use to submit the SQL statements for execution, check the status of execution of the statement, you can cancel the execution of the statement, you can fetch the query results concurrently. All these options are available to you using the SQL API. The following commands are not supported. These are all bit tricky for your exam point of view, so you need to be aware of all these things. The put command is not supported. The get command is not supported. If you are already following my videos, the put and get is to put the data into Snowflake and get the data out of Snowflake. These are all some of the commands, but in SQL API, the put and get commands won't work for you. The following commands and statements are supported only within a request that specifies the multiple statements. In that you can see begin, commit and rollback, you can use object, alter session. All these commands are available only if you specify the multiple statements within the specific request. And then the statements which sets the session variable, statements that creates a temporary tables and stages. These are all the limitations. So you need to be aware of these things. Starting from this to this, all these things are the limitations within the Snowflake SQL API, which will be very, very useful for your exam point of view. Now moving on to the cost section. As we already discussed, there is an extensive 3.5 which is added in domain 3, which talks about the overall cost on Snowflake. So it is very, very important for us to understand how the costing works. In our previous videos, we discussed about how the costing works for compute. But compute cost is not the only cost for Snowflake. Within Snowflake, we are having lot of costing factors which are getting involved. You will be costed for cloud services layer, we will be costed for the cloud storage layer, you will be costed for the cloud compute layer as well. We are going to discuss more in detail about each and everything. The total cost of using Snowflake is the aggregate of cost of using data transfer, data storage and the compute resources. This is an important thing to note. It is not that only the warehouse running time is going to consume the charge. Now, compute resources. What are all the compute resources which can consume cost? Virtual warehouse compute. It is an existing one. I am not going to cover more in detail, which we already discussed to a greater extent. Whatever the virtual warehouses which are running, which will consume cost. There is the another form of compute which is called as a serverless compute. These features are used by the search optimization and Snowpipe, that Snowflake manages the compute resources for you. So for Snowpipe and search optimization, serverless compute comes into play. And then there is another layer which is the cloud services compute. The cloud services layer in the Snowflake architecture consumes some of the credits as it performs behind the scenes tasks like authentication, metadata management and access control. There is one important caveat. That is the reason why I underlined the statement. Usage of cloud services layer is charged only if the daily consumption of cloud service resources exceeds 10% of the daily warehouse usage. This terminology is very simple to understand. They will charge the cloud services layer only if you are using cloud services layer beyond 10% of your virtual warehouse usage. Meaning, if you are consuming 100 credits for your virtual warehouse on a specific day, and then you are consuming say like 8 credits on cloud services layer, your services layer cloud cost will be waived off. Meaning, since it is for falling behind that 10 percentage of 100 is 10 credits. Since your cloud services layer consumed 8 credits alone, you will not be charged. Whatever you are using beyond the 10 percentage limit, say your cloud services layer is utilizing 20 credits, then that 20 minus 10, that 10 percentage of 100, only the 10 credits will be charged from the Snowflake side. We are going to discuss more in detail in the subsequent slides as well. Then moving on to the storage resources, the monthly cost of storing data in Snowflake is based on the flat rate per terabyte. So the cost which is going to be involved on the storage is based on the data per terabyte. Say 1 TB is charged on a flat rate basis. For current rate, which varies dependent on the region on which you are storing the data. This is very common in cloud. Not all the region they will be charging the same rate. So if you are storing the data in US, you will be charged different. If you are storing data in EU, which is the Europe region, you will be charged differently. The third one is the data transfer resources. Snowflake does not charge for data ingress fees to bring data into your account, but does charge for data egress. Ingress and egress are pretty easy thing. Ingress is the data incoming, egress is the data outgoing. So the Snowflake wants the data to be stored within Snowflake, so there is no charge for incoming data into Snowflake. But if you are taking data out of Snowflake, you must be charged for that. So these are all the three different components on which your costing will work. Now you see this, simply we can understand how the total cost work. Here the data loading requirements, say if you are loading the data, loading window, if you are loading the data for all 24/7/365 days, you are utilizing small standard virtual warehouse, you will be consuming 1488 credits. How the credit calculation works, which is mentioned within the bracket. Then the data storage requirements, so you are having 65 TB of data, so it is a flat storage per TB per month. Then the compute requirements, here you are seeing different users are using different virtual warehouses. Finance users are using the large standard virtual warehouse, and sales users are using medium standard warehouse, and then the complex query users are using 2x standard virtual warehouse, which is consuming this much amount of credits. Now how the total calculation works, it's like for the compute cost, if you see the 1488 plus 1440 plus 1280 plus 256, which will come close to around 4464 credits. So standard, which is coming under $2 per credit, it is an $8,928. And then the storage, as we already discussed, it is of a flat cost, so 65 TB, so $23 per TB is the cost for that region, so it will comes under $1,495. The total cost for the specific Snowflake account, which will come under $10,423. So this is how the complete costing on Snowflake works. Now we are going to discuss about the cost insights in Snowsight. There is a clear mention in the exam study guide about this topic. That is the reason why we need to understand more about that. Snowsight is nothing but the UI from the Snowflake, right? The earlier UI from Snowflake got revamped with lot of new features, lot of visual graphs and everything, and they are calling it as the Snowsight. In Snowsight, there is a new feature which is introduced by Snowflake, which is called as the cost insights. So Snowflake provides the cost insights that identify opportunities to optimize the Snowflake for cost within a particular account. These insights are calculated and refreshed weekly. This is an important thing to note. So Snowflake by itself is providing us with the set of recommendations. So use those recommendations and reduce your cost. Simple. Each insights indicate how many credits or TBs could be saved by optimizing Snowflake. So the insights are mentioned here. What are all the various insights? You can see this by going through this, you can understand it very clearly. Rarely used tables with automatic clustering. This is a simple thing. If you are using a table which is very rare in usage, with the automatic clustering is unnecessary. Why you are unnecessarily wasting the charge? So you can remove the clustering from those tables. Rarely used materialized views. Again, another important thing. Materialized views will consume consume you more cost. If you are using it very rarely, why unnecessarily you are spending cost? You can remove the materialized view. Rarely used search optimization path. Large tables that are never queried. Tables over 100 GB for which data is written but not read. Short-lived permanent tables. Inefficient usage of multi-cluster warehouses. All these things are a potential cost savings for you. So you can use these insights. Along with that, they will provide you how many credits you can save by going through these insights, and you can do the recommended action. Optimizing the cloud services layer. These are all the ones which will provide you an optimization on computer. Similar thing they are providing for the cloud services. Blocked queries due to transaction logs. Copy commands with the poor selectivity. High frequency DDL operations and cloning. High frequency simple queries. High frequency information schema queries. High frequency show commands by the data applications and third party tools. Single row inserts and fragmented schemas. Complex SQL queries. These are all the ones which will consume more cost on the cloud services layer. You can go through each and every one of these items here, and then you can optimize the cost. So these insights are very important from exam point of view. Please try to understand these insights. What are all the insights which are provided by the cost insights options of Snowsight, so that you can be well equipped. Whatever the options which are provided to you, so you can select it in a right way. Moving on to the serverless credit usage, we need to discuss about this specific point. We already touched upon this point to a smaller extent. As we discussed earlier, the serverless credits will be consumed by Snowflake if you are using the serverless options such as the Snowpipe or search optimization. We are going to discuss more in detail about how the serverless credit usage is going to be. Serverless credit usage is the result of features relying on compute resources provided by Snowflake rather than user managed virtual warehouses. Self-explanatory. I'm not going to explain more here. Why? Because serverless term itself is defined in that way. All the compute resources are managed by Snowflake, not by us. These compute resources are automatically resized and scaled up or down by Snowflake as required for each workload. So no need to worry about scaling of this. Charges for serverless features are calculated based on total usage of Snowflake managed compute resources measured in compute hours. This is very important. Compute hours are calculated on per second basis, rounded up to the nearest whole second. So it's a second based billing only, but they are telling it as compute hours. The number of credits consumed per compute hour varies depending on the serverless feature which we are using, right? So understanding the billing for the cloud services layer, now we can try to understand how the billing for the cloud services usage is going to happen. Now, first of all, the usage of the cloud services is charged only if the daily consumption of the cloud services exceeds 10% of daily usage of virtual warehouse. Same point which we discussed earlier. I am not going to reiterate. Serverless compute does not factor into 10% adjustment of the cloud services. Try to understand. Serverless compute does not comes in. This is only the 10% adjustment for the user managed virtual warehouses alone. 10% adjustment for the cloud services is calculated daily, which is in the UTC time zone, by multiplying daily virtual warehouse usage by 10%. We are going to discuss an example. The adjustment of the monthly usage statement is equal to sum of the daily calculations. If the cloud services consumption is less than 10% of the warehouse consumed credits for the given day, then the adjustment for the day is equal to cloud services used for your account. This is again a slightly trickier statement, but what they are trying to say here is that if your cloud services consumption is less than 10%, then you will be waived off, meaning there is no extra charge which is added to you. Now you can see this very clearly. On November 1st, your total credits for warehouses is 100 and your cloud services credits which is 20. Meaning what? 10% of 100 is 10. So what is the total credit which they are going to charge, which is going to be 110? Why? Because the 10% of 100 is 10, that will be deducted from 20. So only 10 of the 10 for the cloud services can be calculated for the final bill. Similar 120 and 10, here you can see that, right? So the total warehouse credits it's 120, but the cloud services used is only 10. So 10 percentage of 120 is 12, which is greater than 10. So there is no charge for cloud services layer, only charge for the virtual warehouse, which is the 120, which is already used. So now you can see 80, and then 5 is the cloud services layer consumed. So obviously the 10 percentage of 80, which is going to be 8, 5 is lesser than 8, it is waived off. So we will be paying only 80 credits. So simple understanding, 10 percentage is the limit which you need to understand. You can expect some scenario based questions on the exam where they will tell you total warehouse usage is this much, and then your cloud services layer usage is this much, what can be your cost. Like simple type of the questions you can expect. The 10 percentage adjustment is the important thing which you need to be aware of. Moving on to the replication cost. Replication which we already saw in our previous videos. What replication is, how the data is replicated between one account to other account, between the cloud service providers like AWS and Azure. All the options are available. Now we are going to discuss about how these costs are calculated within the replication. The charges for the replication are divided into two categories: data transfer and compute resources. Again, we are falling under similar fashion which we discussed earlier. Obviously, for the replication, the data must have to be transferred from one Snowflake account to other Snowflake account. So data transfer cost will be involved. Only the cost for egress is needed. Obviously, from primary account, it is going to be egress. Why? Because it is not going to be ingress, it is going to be egress. But for the secondary account, it is going to be ingress. Right? From primary, it is egress. For secondary, it is ingress. But anyway, for primary, we need to pay. So data transfer cost needs to be involved there. Obviously, for data to be processed and transferred, we will be in need of the compute resources. So both the things. Data transfer, the initial replication and subsequent synchronization operations transfer data between regions. Right? Cloud providers charge for the data transferred from one region to other within their own network. The data transfer rate is determined by the location of your source account, that is the account that stores the primary replication or the failover group. So based on these three factors, your data transfer cost for replication will happen. Compute resources, to determine the delta of both metadata and data to be copied during the refresh operation, to copy the data between the accounts across the regions. Now, how you can control the cost? The cost control methods which are available. In general, monthly billing of replication is proportional to these factors. Amount of table data in primary database or databases in a replication or failover group that changes as the result of the data loading or the DML operations. This is an important point to note. See, the amount of table data will change based on the DML operations or data loading only. Frequency of secondary database or replication refreshes from the primary database or the failover group. Using these two parameters, these two main thing only, your monthly billing of replication is going to change. You can control the cost of replication by carefully choosing which databases or objects to replicate and the refresh frequency. You can stop incurring replication cost by ceasing refresh operations. These are all some of the important points which you can note how you can save the cost during the replication by ceasing the refresh operations, refresh frequency, and also by carefully choosing the databases and objects which you want to replicate. Meaning what? You don't want to replicate all of your data from your primary to secondary. Whatever mission critical data which you want to save it in a secondary region, only those data you can enable the replication. By enabling only that sensitive data or a small fraction of data, you can save a lot amount of cost using replication. That is what is mentioned using these statements. So now how I can view the cost for the replication? It can be done using users with the account admin role can use the SQL to view the amount of data transferred in bytes and the credit usage of replication using the replication or failover groups from your Snowflake account within the specified date range. How you can do so? Using same two options of information schema and account usage. There is a replication group usage history table function in information schema. Obviously, information schema holds the data only for 14 days, and then the replication group usage history view in account usage will hold the data for 1 year. By querying these two specific table function and view, using the account admin role, you can get the relevant data. One final topic to discuss before I am letting you go, which is the Snowflake budgets. Again, there is a mention about the Snowflake budgets on the exam study guide, so we need to understand. See, this concept is not a newer one. Budget is all about budgeting. Whenever we are doing budgets within our home, we will do a budget for a month, how my amount is going to be spent for that specific month. For that we will be doing budgets. Earlier we discussed about something called as a resource monitor. Similarly, we can have something which is defined as the Snowflake budget. Simple terms, I am having this much amount which I am going to spend for this month. If I am going to reach that amount, I need to be notified. That is going to happen using the Snowflake budgets. Budgets enables the account level monitoring and notification of Snowflake credit usage for a group of specific Snowflake objects. A Snowflake budget defines the monthly spending limit on compute cost for Snowflake account or a custom group of Snowflake objects. When the spending limit is projected to be exceeded, a notification is sent. You can configure the budget to send the notification to list of email addresses, a queue provided by the cloud service, something like an Amazon SNS or Azure Event Grid or Google's PubSub or a Webhook or a third party system. Example, a Slack message or Microsoft Teams message or an PagerDuty message as well. So as I already told, say let us take an example. I am having a money of $100 or $1,000, right? My maximum spend which I can do for Snowflake is $1,000. Now what I can do is I can set up a budget for say $1,000 is my budget. Say whenever I am exceeding, I am going to reach 80%, which is going to be $800. Then immediately one email will be triggered to my mailbox along with the group of admins within the Snowflake stating I am going to reach the specific threshold. This is going to happen using the Snowflake budgets. So the account budget, there are different types of budgets which we can create. The account budget monitors the spending for all supported objects within that specific account. You can also create a custom budget to monitor the spending limits for a specific group of supported objects. Meaning what? You want to monitor a specific group of object. Say I want to monitor a specific tables, I want to monitor a specific set of views, specific set of store procedures. All these things can be done using a custom budget. For both the type of budgets, you must set the spending limit and specify how you want to receive the notifications. The spending limit is expressed in the Snowflake credits and it's used for alerting and notification purposes only. The spending limit is set for the time interval of one calendar month. These are all the things which you need to know. So now what are all the limitations? Instances of the budget class can't be replicated to target accounts. This is something which you need to know. An account can contain a maximum of 100 custom budgets. Currently, budgets does not support monitoring cost for hybrid tables. Hybrid tables is not supported. Now, you can see a simple example here. There is a project one budget. Example, I am giving 1500 credits per month. That project one budget, dev is consuming 300 credits. And then the UAT is consuming 300 credits. There is a resource storage, all these things you are seeing here, right? Once it is going to exceed the 1500, then an alert will be sent to the group of users or the account admin or Snowflake admin or owner of that specific groups. All these things are possible. More similar to resource monitor, but resource monitor you can take actions as well, but here that actions option is not available to you. Just an alert mechanism is available to you. With this we came to end of this video. As usual, I will be posting all the relevant Snowflake related documentation links in the description of this video. Please go through those things to understand more about these things. With this we are tamper proof, meaning as of this end of February or March 2025, whatever the contents for Snowpro core is covered as this part of series of 30 videos. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this video has been informative for you. Please do write lot of comments that will help me to enhance the contents for this video. Thank you very much for watching.